It always amazes me just how much ground you can cover in an interview of only about 30 minutes with an owner of a business. And this one is no exception. Cat Howe really does cover so much ground. This is such an interesting interview. We talk obviously about creativity. I mean, one of her imperatives, you'll hear this in one of her tips at the end, is that your last piece of work should always be your best. You're constantly, as you say, iterating to better. But embedded right in the middle of all this is some surprising detail about what an application for B Corp involves. It certainly surprised me. Well, it certainly surprised Kat as well. But we'll also dive into the detail, and I think really important stuff that business owners really want to understand is how to manage cash, how to understand cash flow forecasting, and how to understand whether you've got sufficient of a project pipeline. How do you measure that? How do you gauge that? Some really interesting insights in this interview from Kat on those essential practicalities. We talk about recruiting badly. It's just really not worth it. Do it at your peril, she says. It can cause huge problems, particularly in small teams. So all in all, this is a really interesting, as I said, instructional as well as inspirational interview, and I really hope you enjoy it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stressing Values podcast. I'm really looking forward to introducing you to this morning's guest, Cat Howe. She's got some fantastic ideas and really extraordinary design ability. So without further ado, Kat, welcome to Stressing Values.
Hello, thank you for having me, Colin.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I am so looking forward to sharing with our audience what we talked about last week and the sort of issues that you're dealing with. But before we get to that, I guess I need to give you an opportunity to tell us a bit more about yourself and about Howe.
Yeah, well, so where do I start? Well, I suppose I'll start from the beginning, which is around uni.
Always a good place.
Because I have had, I suppose, a bit of an unconventional journey to where I am now, or perhaps it was the best journey ever. I don't know. I probably err on the latter. But I actually read English at uni, and I was always trying to squirrel design and art references into my English essays, which my tutors at the time were a little bit cross with me about. So I've always loved art and design. Was really into art as a child and growing up, and at uni stage I decided to go into English as opposed to art and design, which I think for quite a few years, made me I questioned that decision. After uni, became a journalist, wrote for several national newspapers here in the UK, was an art and design critic, and about culture and things like that, and then just realized that I didn't really want to critique the creative work of others and just had to do it myself, really. So it's scratch. Yeah, I just felt like it wasn't my place. So I retrained, and that was probably about 15, 20 years ago. And then I ended up at St Martin's, Central St Martin's, where I did an MA in communication design, and then from then on, I've had various different creative businesses, worked in agencies, but also run my own creative businesses, ran a creative co-working company, an online design shop, always with my husband, Rog, actually, the last two. And then we set up Howe and Howe in 2020. I married him, obviously, and my second name's Howe. It used to be Davison, but it's quite a strong name, I suppose. We're always trying to change the name of our studio, but none of our team let us because they tell us it's it's an unusual name, but it's just spelled HOW. And people like the wordplay, you know, with that and what we could do with that.
I was going to say, it certainly resonates. Absolutely.
Yes, I mean it's people remember me, and they actually weirdly think that I've named myself after my agency as opposed to the other way around. And they're like, oh right, no, like, no, this is actually my name. This is why we call ourselves this. So yes, we run a creative agency. Obviously, we have an office here in London and one in LA, and yes, I mean we focus a lot on branding. Essentially, we also work on websites and digital too. So we you know, we're brand specialists, but the web design element dev we also do for our clients.
Yeah, they go together nowadays, don't they? You can't divorce them, really.
Yeah, exactly. But we tend to do everything in house, so we don't. We own the digital a lot more, I think, than many other branding agencies that perhaps focus just a lot more on the beginning bit. But
okay,
yeah.
right.
I suppose, yeah. And I suppose another quick superpower about us is that we, because of my background, love words as well. So verbal identity is really important for us as well as visual identity. I think that's what we're trying to differentiate ourselves by as well.
Well, I think that's a common misunderstanding that brand is just a logo or just an image. It's actually much more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like with anything, you know, like with any person you meet, you obviously judge them by how they look. I think Oscar Wilde once said that only superficial people don't judge by appearances, and I think that that's very true. Like we all judge each other by appearances, so you judge the visual identity, but you also, you know, learn a lot about a person, the way they speak, how they articulate themselves, and the verbal identity is just as important, I think. So people forget that, and yeah, logo is definitely more than some of its parts in that respect.
Oh, totally, absolutely, yeah. This stuff is a bit subliminal and really powerful, I think. Yes.
Sure.
So you've been going for how many years as how?
So we are now in our 4th year.
It's probably quite a big question to ask. Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? But because that'll be twice as long as you've been going. But what is the ambition?
Lots of ambition. Always. And our team are also really ambitious too, which is great. But I'm moving to LA in about 6 weeks with family. And so by that I mean Roger and my children. So we're relocating over there. Currently live in Lisbon, but the plan is to grow the LA office out there as well. We want to keep growing the London team as well. And then I think when we reach a certain size in both, then we will probably look at opening another location somewhere else, most likely in the States. Yeah. So
wow. So transatlantic expansion.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of our clients are based in the US, so it's always been something that is on the cards a lot, particularly in the tech sector, and a lot,
of course,
more so in climate tech and clean tech. So for us, California was always, you know, we're always on late night calls with people, and
yes,
felt like just the right thing to do.
A natural progression. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So what did it take to get from that early startup with your husband to get to where you are now with a very realistic proposition of going to America?
Well, a lot of hard work. I don't know. I think we opened in the pandemic, June 2020, which was quite difficult time because obviously we had both of our small children at home as well. They were toddlers, and it was, you know, but like they say, there's never a good time to open an agency. So yes, that was quite difficult. In a weird way, because everyone had to be remote. It meant that we could hire people all over the place, and it not be a problem. And I think now, in the last few years, we've realized that actually people being all over the places can be a bit of a problem in terms of culture. So we're trying to get, you know, like actually start to now make sure that we have proper hubs, as in London or LA, where people can actually be together. And so that's something that's just developed post-pandemic, which was interesting. But no, I mean, we are incredibly hardworking. We have very long days, and we work every evening. But I don't know, it doesn't really seem like work for us. Feels like we're just, I don't know, we've got something out, some other motivation. I don't know where it comes from, but we're both quite ambitious in that respect, and we just want to keep pushing constantly. So yeah, long days.
But long days doing what?
At the beginning, it was very much like I handled all the creative direction, and Roger handled all the accounting and all the more, logistics and trying to sort out processes and things like that.
Right.
Now, as we've hired a great team, we've been able to delegate because we obviously know that we're not as good as them. So it's now become more a question of like just us being able to, know that we can delegate, know that we can push out lots of responsibility, which I think at the beginning we weren't able to do because we didn't have, the people around us.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And then just gradually, patience, which I don't really have much of, but patiently trying to grow the case studies and making sure that each case study is as good as it possibly can be. And then just, incrementally, trying to just get out there. And I think my experience as a journalist helped with knowledge of marketing and how to tell the story of a project well. I had some old contacts in the journo world I was able to leverage. So I think our experience in different industries, my husband Roger, he also was at the BBC for 10 years. And I think our experience of marketing helped us be unconventional creative agency founders, because quite often you get designers who set up agencies together. And I think the fact that we came from slightly different walks of life meant that we had a different sort of business strategy, which I think, helped.
So it sounds like your role has changed. You were frontline delivering, actually doing the design work initially, and now you're stepping back a little bit from the front line. Is that right?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I am stepping back from the front line because I physically can't. Now my day involves all sorts of, funny emails to people, not funny emails, but like emails to people or things that I have to sort, which I never even in a million years would have thought I would have had sorted, but that's just how it goes. And I don't have, the capacity to be as in the projects as I was at the beginning, which is actually quite a relief because it was quite stressful doing both. So now we've got great creative directors who are just way better at doing the job than I was, but I still like to oversee all creative that goes out.
Yes, because going out with your brand name, isn't it? It's absolutely, exactly. It's critical that you see the end product. So how much further do you think you can take the delegation as you evolve?
Well, I would always love to have creative oversight and vision, but I'm very happy to pass that creative on to all that creative direction on to, got an amazing new creative director who just started with us a couple of months ago, a new one who's starting in a month as an ACD. We have another ACD, and so based in Lisbon. So yes, I'm happy with that. I'm really not fussed about handing over that side of things. Because you have to be creative anyway in a different way to run an agency properly and think about new ways of doing things. So it's just creativity just reimagined and repurposed.
Reimagined. I think that's a lovely way of phrasing it. I love that, and I think that will help our viewers. There's a lot of people I work with struggle with delegation, and I think that idea of reimagining it is actually quite a lovely way of phrasing it. One thing you mentioned was this. And it's quite interesting to talk to somebody who started their business in the pandemic. So you started remote working, but a lot of people are saying that it's really difficult to return to the culture that they had when they were based all in one place, and they got dispersed, and now everybody wants to work from home. So getting people together, developing the culture is a real problem. You've almost got the reverse of it. You've got to pull together a culture from all these remote workers. How's that going?
Well, exactly. So this was something that we didn't really anticipate, obviously, but because we were born in this other worldly state that everyone was in. And it's taken us a while to understand the implications of not being remote. And so, Yes, we have had. We've now actively. We now are also actively trying to grow the teams based on specialists within each team. So when we first started, we had Lisbon as another location, and we had a team there. And then when we realised we needed to go to LA, we offered the team in Lisbon roles in either LA or London, because we knew that we knew that we couldn't have too many outposts. We knew we had to consolidate people in
Okay.
in other locations. And so like that was really good to do, because I think that we found that we had some account managers, and hopefully there's not too much detail, but just an example, account managers in Portugal, lots more designers in London, but every time a designer needed to jump on a project and talk to their account manager about it, they would always have to be on a call. And it was just leading to some real fragmentation where people were on calls all the time.
Yes.
And you don't realize that when in a creative team, you have all sorts of different people, and it just, it's so much more useful to have people at least in one space that you can talk to, and it's not constantly online. So it took us a while to figure that out. Lots of trips back to London, and then just seeing people really frustrated with like always on, always having to jump on a call.
For small things as well, just to update or just catch up, or yes.
Yeah. So we use Slack a lot. But it's been great we've moved into this lovely new office in Shoreditch, and people are just really enjoying just being able to jump into a meeting room together and discuss.
Yes.
Well, people still work from home 2 days a week, which they really, really value. And so we give them 3 days a week in the office. We only ask that people come in on a Monday to have one day where we're all together.
Oh, there's one solid day, then the other 2 days they can choose which ones they come in. But
it's actually it's just for people who have naturally fallen into just working from home on a Tuesday, working from home on a Friday. So although we haven't dictated it, it's just people.
Just the way the way it's worked. Brilliant. Yeah. Register for B Corp, which is I'm really interested in asking you why you went for that, and what has it helped you with?
I suppose why we went for that, we knew that particularly with the work that we were doing, the work we wanted to do, it was a very, very key part of our values. We read a lot about it, and we learned that it is really beneficial for your business, obviously, in the sense that it tells you all the stuff that you need to do to make your business better. And when we went on the process, which has taken us probably almost 2 years, a year and a half, significant amount of time, and we've had people plugging away, and we now have policies for things that we had no idea we would even in a million years think about, which is great. So you have almost like a handbook when you start a business.
What was the one that surprised you the most?
Breastfeeding policy, actually, which was
okay.
I know, as a mum, I've had 2 kids. It's just to have a policy where women who return to work can have a certain amount of hours off, or a certain place where they can go, they can breastfeed, and things, really niche things, which I think would make a lot of difference to that particular person.
Yes.
But which I think in management, maybe, like I really should have thought of that.
Yes, but it hadn't occurred to anyone. Well, yes, it's not. You've certainly surprised me with that. But it makes a lot of sense as soon as you say it. Yes.
Yeah. Or even, a sabbatical leave time, or so people feel they don't ask for stuff, but there's policies in place that if they feel they need to take some time, or things like that, there's ways they can do it. So that was incredibly useful. And in terms of what it's helped us do, I think it, shows our, demonstrates the values that we hold and how difficult it is to get, and we've had to, it's expensive to do it. We've had to, it's complicated. Like we've had to move our bank to a more green one. We've had to, we've got to instruct our lawyers to help us with even the application process at the end. Had paid, there's expense involved.
Yes, absolutely.
And obviously time involved in the team working through all those points and all that admin. But I think it very much, it's a calling cry to other designers out there that they can join a company where they know that the values at least are good. It's a secondary way of being assured that this company has got those values, all those policies set, and they will be thinking about you more than someone that doesn't
have it. Yeah. Has it made a difference to recruitment?
Yeah, we found that people have, we have a lot of people apply considering our size and our age to each role we have, and we see that a lot of people, designers and account managers indeed, have come from another B Corp and they want to still keep in the B Corp community in terms of where they work, because they have, they know that we've thought about things as much as their previous employee would. So yeah, people tend to have a smaller set of B Corp companies that they know they want to work in.
Interesting.
Accolades.
So it's almost a sort of ecosystem in its own right now.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. So, and also it means that the designers that want to work for us also have those same values, which is really important for us as well. So it is quite win-win.
Yes. So do those values impact commercial decisions that you make?
Yes, they do. And I think what we have is a sort of like moral compass as an agency, and a commitment. I've also signed a pledge by the Clean Creatives, who are also another great initiative of designers who are trying to get other agencies to sign up to not work with particular sorts of clients.
Okay.
And they're doing great. But yes, it has impacted decisions we've made. There was an example of a toy company, sold lots of plastic toys, and they approached us. They're big, very big here and well known in the UK. And we put it to the team whether we'd like to work for this company and do the rebrand and web sign for them. And we'd tried to get some feedback from the company that they might adopt some greener policies, or would they start selling, wooden toys or toys that have been recycled, or if there's an element of, not just perpetuating plastic consumption. And they said no. They said it's not part of the business plan. And we put it to the team and it got vetoed. And so we ended up not working with them because we felt like the values didn't align. The team working on that project might feel really, disgruntled by what they were doing and disaffected by the work they were doing, not proud of it, which would also be bad for, retaining those people. But also just generally, would we be proud to talk about it? No. So yes, we
that's really interesting. So I guess, if it's that big a brand, that a lot of agencies would be very proud to work for it, because they would get the sort of brand recognition and kudos from it, I guess.
Yeah, I think you are judged quite rightly for the decisions that you make when you take on a client. We're really small. I would love to get to the point where, we do turn people away, and we have referral scheme with smaller agencies that we hand them to. But yeah, it would be, it's very important to try and remember that, a project, if you think it could be the best project ever, and then, if it's a massive company, you have this big stakeholders, and then, it just kills the creatives feel on our side feel so, can have really difficult experiences with these big clients. And
yes,
that can, so it's sometimes the smaller guys who are just, founder led and obviously less money involved, but are more reactive. They're more engaged with the project. They're more excited about it, and everyone actually from our team as well enjoys it. But
yes, so more job satisfaction, because that ability, I think this is something I spend a lot of time talking about. How do you say no? It's very easy to say yes in a business, but actually saying no is the hard bit, but probably the most crucial bit in terms of leadership. You seem to have taken a fairly democratic approach to whether or not you say yes or no. Does that permeate through other decisions that you make?
Yeah, it is. We always try and push out questions to the team. Obviously, there's lots of stuff that we can only talk about in management, and but we do want people to feel like they are part of a conversation. And the last thing we want is for team members to not be aware of things until very late on. So transparency for us is really important. But yeah, I think when it comes to those decisions and saying no, there are some things that we we want to make people feel involved in management, saying no. We have weekly meetings about looking at the pipeline and looking at exactly whom we should say yes to and whom we shouldn't pursue. Normally it's based on price, which is very much we just factor in whether we can actually afford to do the job,
Yes.
because of the overheads we have, and then that forms a bit of a filter. But sometimes we don't. We do pro bono work just because we love the idea, and so then we pay for all of that ourselves. So that is always a democratic process. We always take the pro bono work to the team and see what projects people want to do.
If they get energized by it and they really want to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, that sounds exciting. Because some of the pro bono work you do looks amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, thank you. It's really good when you can pick the client as opposed to being the other way around.
Yeah, I was going to say the boot on the other foot. Yes.
So we have a Get Set initiative, and we started out maybe 2 years ago, and it was a way of us being able to make the work we wanted to produce. And it started out with a series of campaigns we did around microplastics, and then reforestation of kelp forests.
Yes.
And then we started to actually make more of a thing of it, and we've since done one for a material innovation company, and like a bioconcrete company, and one around a circular material company called Amphiko. They're basically going to be the sort of a greener alternative to Gore-Tex. So we've worked with these really exciting, really enthusiastic founders
Yes.
who are just who are just at this stage of just about to launch and make it big, we believe. And the premise being that all they need is a great brand and a pitch deck to take to investors, and we'll provide that, and just
right. Yes, absolutely. That presentation is so important, isn't it? Oh, how that must be fantastic to work with clients like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't pay the bills. So one that area of fairly democratic decision making about which clients, or certainly some clients that you might not take on, they're big decisions, particularly early. You're still early stage in your development. How do you manage? How would you make that decision if actually it was really quite business critical that you took that account, but yet you thought the designers might struggle with it?
I think we've been thinking about this a lot recently, and thankfully we haven't been able to be in a situation where it's like the toy one, for example, was obviously quite black and white. But our problem to date, touch wood, has actually been more a sense of whether a project is boring or not, I think. And is it like another fintech, or is it another mortgage company who wants to rebrand? Or so we haven't had to worry that we are ethically and morally opposed, because actually if we were, it would just we just know that we couldn't do that. I don't know, we haven't had to cross that difficult bridge when it came to it. But I think it's about communicating to the team as well that certain jobs we have to do just to pay the bills, and we have to just this is a job that's we're just doing it because we just need the income, and it might be we might not case study it, but it's just one of those that we're just gonna crack through, and we'll have a good time on it. But it's not going to be don't have to worry that it's going to be this high pressure job. It's just and we do those, and even those ones, because we're always wanting to make sure that designers are inspired in the work they do, and they're not just on another rebrand for a sense of company.
Yes. And
so that have that it's that the fatigue starts to set in, and they start to look elsewhere. So it's more a question of is this project exciting enough? I think that's and so if it's a bit boring and things are looking quite tight, and obviously the last year or two in the creative industries has not been great at all, and we work with a lot of tech companies in California, and when Silicon Valley Bank imploded back in last February, we lost 2 really big retainers, and it wasn't nice. So I think our role at the moment is trying to diversify our portfolios, that we don't put all our eggs in one tech basket as well. So
yeah, that diversification piece, that's really vital, isn't it? That you've got a sort of spread across different sectors and probably geographies as well, I guess. Yeah. You mentioned before something about that you've got quite a good eye on the cash flow. So
yeah.
you're not stressed day to day in terms of understanding where the money is. You've got quite good visibility. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it helps that my husband, his granddad was an accountant.
That's a huge help, yes.
So I think he's always had that brain. He studied engineering actually at uni, which is where we met. So he is very much on top of the forecasting. And so what we try and do is we put all of our prospective jobs in a spreadsheet, and that splits out the income to the months where the work has to be done, essentially. And then we always try to have about 3 to 4 times our target turnover in the pipeline for the upcoming about, I don't know, 2 to 3 months. So we only have to win 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 of the jobs to then hit those targets.
That's so music to my ears. Both those things, what I spend a lot of time talking about, the having a proper cash flow forecast,
yeah,
and having a pipeline that has some sort of metrics to it.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's just, and then you can't argue with maths really. So, and then I suppose overall the aim is then to have like costs at around 60 to 75% for the team, and then like a total turnover to then allow for those other costs and profit margins.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we're always, once you know how much things cost and how much you need to bring in, and you can actually look at it, then you can make quite strategic decisions just based on the numbers. About, okay, let's take a boring job, or no, we can't hire that person for another 3 months. Because this is how much marketing budget we can have for this.
Yes, yes.
Gives you more parameters, I think.
It absolutely gives you the framework in which you can operate. Absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. It's a little bit. It sounds very mechanical, but actually, it's the vital lifeblood of the business, isn't it? That enables you to make decisions. Absolutely, really helpful. I want to come back to your time management, though. I was almost quite concerned about you that the two of you spending lots of time.
Yes.
How would you like to reduce the time commitment?
I mean, naturally it would be great to have a bit more time to watch some, crappy thing on Netflix or, but I mean, I don't know. We are workaholics. I think we are better at managing our time than we used to be. But I always quite like this idea of like, it's a bit of a random metaphor, but of like there's a fish that you can get in a fish tank, which is a bottom feeder fish, and it only grows to the size of the tank. So if you have a small tank, the fish will be really small, but if you have a bigger tank, then the fish will become big. And I quite like that idea because it chimes with one of our values of ambition shaping your reality. And I think that one thing that we and Roger have, and I think we I can see in every single one of the team members that we have as well, is that there's always this drive to this ambition, and it's not like in a bad way, but it's a bad ambition. It's just a drive to shape reality in a way that you want to see it. And so I think coming down to the work, we're shaping our reality in the sense that we're moving to LA. We're uprooting our family and young family, but we know that our ambition will be shaped in a different way by doing that. And it has meant lots more hours in the evening, sorting out visas, sorting out, shipping everything over there, all of that stuff. And so that's obviously led.
Yeah, that's a kind of one-off though, isn't it? Hopefully.
Yeah, but then even, on a day-to-day basis, most of my day, I do lots of talks, or chats with people, things like this I do, and takes up time. And then I only have a finite amount of time in the evening to then be able to get back to emails and get back to people on LinkedIn or other stuff that just fills in that space afterwards. So yes, I would love to do less, but maybe I will.
There's always something else to do.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. But what would you recommend? What would your tips be as we wind up the interview for an aspiring business person following in your tracks?
Okay. So, I mean, I talked a lot, we just talked about forecasting, didn't we? And I think a lot of small, companies like ours, particularly, like I said, creative ones in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of awful time for freelancers, awful time for small businesses. So don't ignore the bottom line. I think because it is blood, that's really, really important. Yeah, very much so. So like, make sure you've got the cash. I suppose the second one would be that in terms of creative, that like the last piece of your work should always be your best, because you'll always be judged on that, and that will then be the foundation for the next client to see, or the next prospective designer to see that work. So you have to make sure that each one is the best, and if it's not the best, then you shouldn't be showing it. So constantly like iterating towards better. And I think the third one will be about team and hiring, and hiring badly at your peril, really. So, make sure that when you do interviews and talk to people, that you have a really rigorous way of, uncovering any ego or any quirks. And, not everyone's going to be right for the company. And so being, really putting a lot of due diligence into like finding that right person, especially when you're small, because each person is so important at the beginning.
They have such an outsized impact, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So those are my three: cash, creative, and team.
Whoa, that's a fantastic set. Wow. I knew it would be inspirational, but it's also been very instructional. It's massive guidance for people trying to run a business. That's been so enjoyable. Thank you very much indeed, Kat. It's been a fantastic interview with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Colin.
My pleasure.